Would you introduce yourself for us, please, sir?
Yeah, I'm Richard Ivan Mack.
Richard Ivan. You threw the Ivan in there. So.
Yeah. That's what. But most people know me as Sheriff Mack.
Sheriff Mack. How long you been retired?
23 years from law enforcement, and I taught school for about 6 years, and then I've been on the lecture circuit ever since.
So you taught for 6 years. What did you teach?
Constitution government, criminology, American history. I think that's it.
Where'd you do that at?
It's called Heritage Academy, and it's a charter school in Arizona.
Okay, so private charter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What made you decide to teach after law enforcement?
Well, a friend of mine owned those schools. He founded those schools. I heard about them a lot, and it fit exactly my philosophy about teaching and American patriotism, and the school was based on the Constitution, Founding Fathers, and all the teachers have to take a course in the Constitution that he teaches every 3 years, and I said that's
continuing
perfect.
ed.
Yeah,
Cool.
continuing, and I said that's perfect for me. So.
And you were teaching. So did you teach teachers as well as students then?
No, he taught the teachers, and I taught the kids.
Taught the kids. And that ran the gamut age-wise from
Junior high through high school.
junior high through high school. Do you see a marked difference in students who are educated in more of a charter school or private school setting in the amount of emphasis that's placed on Constitution?
Yeah, certainly the school is more flexible in being able to present that to the kids, and the intent of the Founding Fathers is all a part of it.
Right.
And we teach the organic Constitution. What did the Second Amendment really mean, and how it applies to today. It's no different today than it was 250 years ago.
Right.
The principles, and that's another thing I teach. I teach that principles don't change. Principles are eternal truths. The kids have to know the definition of principle.
Right.
And that our Constitution is based on principles.
So I'm going to operate off of the assumption that most of the people who are going to watch this don't necessarily know who you are.
Okay.
You worked in law enforcement in Provo, is where you got your start, correct?
Correct.
You worked in Provo for 11 years. 11 years, and kind of a beat cop.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Other than
undercover narcotics officer.
Undercover narcotics officer. I will be finding that picture.
Yeah.
That will be.
Yeah. Google Sheriff Mack undercover photo.
All right.
It's a doozy.
And you ended up going back down to Arizona into what county was it?
Graham, like Graham Cracker, and that's my hometown.
It's your hometown, your home region, and running for sheriff, and that was at the prompting of your very strong-willed mother-in-law.
Correct.
And it was to save the county from a corrupt law enforcement officer.
Correct.
Had he been in office before, or was he an active deputy at the time?
No, he never worked for the sheriff's office. He worked for another agency.
For another agency, and he saw the sheriff's office as a way to seize power for himself to some degree.
Yeah, or make money
Make
or whatever.
money.
But yeah.
And so you went down and you ran for office and you won.
Yeah.
How long were you in office as sheriff after that?
I served 2 terms, 8 years.
8 years. And in that time, what was the most difficult part of being sheriff for you? I don't ask normal questions.
That's a difficult question. I never thought any of it was very difficult. I was already trained.
But you fought a legal battle.
Oh yeah, totally.
So what prompted that?
Well,
For those of you who don't know, he's the only sheriff in the history of the United States that's ever sued the federal government and won
at the U.S. Supreme Court.
at the Supreme Court.
Now, and
So
let me
you don't
caveat
get, that's
that.
not an accident.
No, that's not. That's
You know?
But let me caveat that. 6 or 7 other sheriffs joined me in the lawsuit, but I started the whole thing. Okay, so I am the first one to ever launch a major lawsuit against the federal government and end up at the Supreme Court and win a major landmark decision.
And,
Yes.
and people jumped on the coattails of that.
Yeah, very few though.
Right.
Very
I mean,
few.
six sheriffs out of.
Yeah.
I mean,
3,100.
Yeah, 3,100. Right. So what happened with that, Sheriff Mack? How did you get into position in 2 terms? You go from being a beat cop and an undercover narcotics cop to running for sheriff in Utah, or excuse me, in Arizona.
Right.
So you leave Utah, where you're licensed.
Right.
Correct.
Correct.
You go to a state that you're not licensed in.
Correct.
Have to get licensed.
You're talking about certified peace officer
right.
status.
Yeah, certified peace officer.
So as soon as I won in Arizona, because it's so, if you're fresh from another certified state, you only have to take a 2-week rehearsal course, kind of thing.
So you're doing all of that.
Which I didn't have to do by law.
Really?
I didn't have to be certified.
So as a sheriff,
the sheriff does not have to be certified in Arizona.
Really?
No.
So they don't even have to be a law enforcement official at all?
No. It's about 50-50 now in states that require you to be certified and that don't require it. Arizona does not require it.
That's interesting.
But I did it because I thought it was just a good idea.
Right, yeah.
So.
You're managing law enforcement. You should
now, if they would have said, like Utah, you have to go back to the academy no matter what. You could quit being the chief of police of Los Angeles and then a year later try to go be a cop in Utah, and you have to redo the entire 3-month academy.
Not me, no.
Ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So here you are. You're brand new to law enforcement in Arizona.
Correct.
And all of a sudden,
and hadn't lived there for 12 years.
Right. And now you're all of a sudden running up against the federal government.
Yeah.
That's not an easy day.
No, but let me tell you, I knew and understood the Constitution already before I ran, and I ran on a platform that my administration would enforce the Constitution. We would live by the Constitution, we would know the Constitution, we would enforce the Constitution. The first 4 years of sheriff, that was never tested. There was no biggie. I mean, the biggest thing I did to that was I ordered my deputies not to write traffic citations for somebody not wearing a seatbelt. I didn't agree with it. The law of enforcing it, okay? I agree that people should wear their seatbelt. I don't agree that cops should be forcing you to. Or there's some agencies that literally run administrative checkpoints or roadblocks to see if you're wearing your seatbelt. And those who aren't must show their papers, your driver's license, your registration, your insurance, and you can get cited in and all this other stuff. I don't agree with any of that.
So you aren't a fan of
Nazi checkpoints? No.
Okay. Don't hold back.
Yeah, no. Right. So I just told them, I said, we will talk to people and reason with them and stop them and educate them that they should have it. And we showed parents where to get child restraint seats for their kids. But we didn't gouge them and try to act like we were here to tax them for not doing so. Bottom line on that, if we lived in a free country, you would make that choice for yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you recommend it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, you're not out there saying don't.
You should wear your seatbelt. I do, but no one should force you to do so.
There you go. So you give this direction to your deputies.
Mm-hmm.
Your deputies.
Yeah.
They're deputized law enforcement. First 4 years, no problems.
No problem.
You get into
some of the deputies would say, Sheriff Mack won't let us do our job. You know, we should be writing these tickets.
Well, no one's ever happy.
Well, but that just showed they didn't quite understand their job.
Right. So then you move into your second term.
Mm-hmm.
You've kind of maybe smoothed out a little bit of the wrinkles of coming in, being very strong on the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And now you approach a different battle.
Right.
But before we get to that battle,
okay.
When in your life, so you got into law enforcement relatively young.
Yeah, I was 25 and it was 1979.
1979. Up until being 25, going up to Provo.
Well, actually, it was 77, but I started as working my way through college.
Parking
as a part-time meter maid. Yeah, parking enforcement. Parking enforcement cadet.
Yeah. So prior to being a parking enforcement cadet, you're at the university. Was it
BYU?
You're at BYU. When did the Constitution become a thing for you? Because some people grow up with it, other people fall into it, and other people don't care ever. So when did it become an issue?
When I married my wife, because her parents were both really staunch Constitutionalists, and so my wife was I think, groomed to be my wife because she grew up in a Constitution home, and her father mostly, and one of her brothers, really taught me a lot about the Constitution.
They harped on you.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially going into law enforcement.
Yeah, but I had to listen, or they wouldn't let me marry their sister or
There'd
daughter.
be no marrying that lady.
Yeah.
You will know the Constitution. The heck with anything
No,
else.
I wasn't in law enforcement when I first was dating her.
Right.
So, but my dad was. He was FBI.
Okay.
And so they really taught me a lot. But yeah, it was that was my first introduction to the Constitution.
So how long were you dating and then married before you got into law enforcement?
And then we dated a year, and we were married about a year and a half. And then we went back to BYU. I had to do a 2-year degree, and then we went up to BYU, and so it was really while I was going to BYU, and we'd been married 2 years.
Working your way through college.
Yeah, I wasn't in debt when I got out of college.
So here you've got this external pressure from in-laws, family, pushing on you, make sure no matter what you do, know the Constitution, follow the Constitution.
Keep your oath.
Keep your oath. Right. And now you're in Provo doing your job, and you end up back down, get through your first 4 years, now your battle comes. What's that battle?
Right, and while I was in Provo is when I really got converted to the Constitution. I went to some other training. I had an epiphany happen to me while I was writing a lady a ticket, and I decided not to write her or give her the ticket because I felt like I had forgotten something, I'd lost something in dealing with the public. I really got into the numbers game that a lot of police departments do, and ours was very number oriented. How many tickets did you write this month? How many DUIs did you get this month? How many misdemeanors? How many felonies? And they were really big into that. Okay, there was no quotas, but it was about the same.
Right.
Because you had to be out getting numbers,
right,
and bringing them in.
Productivity.
Yeah, correct.
It's a productivity issue,
right,
in any profession.
But am I being more productive going around schools and walking where I'm not making any arrests, but I'm creating a safety zone for the
right,
kids? Or how about checking doors downtown? You don't make arrests, but you're making sure things are safe.
Right.
So a lot of other cops have complained that I don't have the stats, but I'm out there working and keeping things safe.
I mean, at that phase, that's mid-80s.
Yeah, it is.
You were bringing, at the time, it was a burgeoning practice in a lot of places, but nobody had really come to call it what we're calling it today, which is community-oriented policing.
Yeah, community policing got big about, well, I'd say about that time. It was
right,
starting.
but you were doing it on your own.
I was doing it on my own.
Nobody came up to you and said, hey, try out this new philosophy.
Because I really learned about community policing at the FBI Academy when I was sheriff. I got invited to the National Academy, and it was big then, and that was 1991. And
right.
So that's when it was going big.
Right, but that was you were doing this before.
Yes.
And you didn't know what it was called.
Correct.
You were being a local cop.
Right. And I was going into the schools teaching my own classes.
Yeah.
You know, things that they started later with DARE and other things. But yeah, you're right.
So you were really, in some respects, you were bringing back to the West what the old marshals and sheriffs were.
Yeah.
Which was everybody knew them.
Right.
You know, think of Tombstone, the movie with Sheriff. Was it Bill that was named that was in Tombstone? Everybody knew him.
Yeah, Wyatt Earp and all that.
Well, and then Wyatt came along and ruined it for me. But but that's what you were doing before anybody else came along.
The thing that then, of course, the only reason you and I are talking now is because my lawsuit against the federal government. And so that happened.
I would be talking to you whether you had that lawsuit.
Yeah, but we wouldn't know each other.
True.
But that's the only thing that put my name on the map. And so maybe something else would have, but I doubt it, because that was quite a remarkable situation, and obviously it got a lot of press nationwide, and in fact worldwide. I got interviews from Britain, Australia, Japan.
Because none of them understand the Constitution.
Right, yeah. And I just got recently an interview from a German newspaper in Frankfurt, and it was a great conversation.
Der Spiegel?
I can't remember the name of it, but it was supposed to be like the New York Times out of Germany. That's all I know.
So what happened? How did sheriff in a small county, right?
Right.
Small.
Oh, yeah.
How did a sheriff in a small county in Arizona, way down on the southern border, run into?
We're one county away from the border.
Yeah, like, you're down there
Right.
in the thick of it,
Right.
sparsely populated.
Mm-hmm.
How do you even end up in a position where you're even on the radar of the federal government, in a position where you have to sue them?
Well, they came to us, and we had a Sheriff's Association meeting in Phoenix, and it was January 21st, 1994. And 3 agents of the BATF came to our meeting and handed us a 25-page document that said, Sheriffs, congratulations, the United States Congress passed a law, President Clinton signed it, that you are required by federal law to enforce the Brady Bill for us. And that's what every sheriff in the room did. There was only 15 counties in Arizona, 13 sheriffs were at this meeting, 2 hardly ever showed, and they weren't there. 13 of us are there, and they handed us these documents and said, this details your responsibilities to enforce the Brady Bill. And we're all going, what?
This is the BATF.
BATF. They were assigned to bring us the marching orders.
Leave it to the federal government to combine all the fun things in life into one agency and then ruin it.
Yeah.
So,
So anyway, we started reading it and they went over some of it with us. And then they told us, besides you having to pay for it all, besides you having to do all the background checks and all the ministerial duties, if you don't do it, you're subject to federal arrest. And this is no joke. You can look it up yourself. It says $10,000 fine or a year in prison.
for a sheriff.
For a sheriff. Just simply to failure to comply.
Right.
And we already had, about half of us already had contracts with the FBP, Federal Bureau of Prisons, where we take some of their overload prisoners.
Into your facility.
Yeah, to my jail, and they pay us.
Right.
And they paid us pretty good.
Yep.
But I had to sign off on it, and so did the county commissioners, and so did the county manager.
So now here's the BATF.
Now they can just come and order us.
Yeah, walking into a meeting going, you don't get a choice, this is what you're going to do.
You have to do it.
So
I told one of them that was talking, I said, you guys know that we don't work for the federal government, and federal government can't tell us what to do.
No jurisdiction over you.
No jurisdiction. And they said, oh, yeah, but Congress passed a law. And I said, I don't care if they pass 500 laws. We don't work for you. You don't pay my salary. You can't fire me. And now you're trying to say you can arrest me if I don't do what you say? And I went like that.
I don't think I'm going to let you arrest me today, Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that movie. And so anyway, the other sheriffs were cussing it up worse than I was. And I was the youngest sheriff in the state. I'd just started my second term. So I wasn't pushing my weight around. But I did want those BATF agents to know how I felt. But other sheriffs were being much more vociferous about it. And
On the front end.
on the front end. But then after we discussed that for the rest of the day, every sheriff in the state acquiesced. And in fact, you know what they said?
Slunk out of the
Almost
room.
all of them said, we have to do it, there's nothing we can do about it. You can't fight City Hall. And I just asked one question. Who wants you to believe you can't fight City Hall? They do. And so before we left, it seemed like it was my turn. They asked every sheriff to say what you want. And I said, I'm not doing it. I said, you guys totally convinced me when you were all mad and cussing that we couldn't do it.
That you were on the right track.
Yeah, that I was on the right track. And I said, now you guys don't want to do anything. I said, I'm telling you, I'm already convinced. I'm not doing it. And they just kind of looked at me and shrugged. And
Isn't the irony of that, though, that with anything, here you have the highest constitutional office in any area is a sheriff.
Yeah.
More constitutional authority than any other person in a county, let alone the state.
That's right.
Men who should know.
And we could have stopped the whole thing real easy. And I didn't say this to them. I made the suggestion later at some other meetings. I said, I really don't want to be doing this lawsuit, you guys, and some of you are mad that I'm doing it. But they never said to my face. And I said, look, why don't we all just write a letter to Congress and say we're not doing it? Tell them good luck, but we're not doing it.
Come enforce this in my county
Yeah,
and see what happens.
it's not going to be enforced in my county, and you're not going to do it either. So anyway, nobody wanted to do that. And so I was the only one in the country doing it. The only one in the country.
It's the threat of force.
Yeah.
It's the threat of force with everything. Any time a law is passed, that no matter who it's directed at, the only reason it's enforceable is because somebody with a badge and a gun is going to come enforce it.
Right.
At some level. Maybe not at the county level or the
yeah.
city level, but at some level, somebody with a badge and a gun.
So anyway, I was the only one for about 4 weeks. And then Sheriff Prince from Montana joined, and I was thrilled.
Yeah, because he was from
Ravalli County.
Yeah, Ravalli.
Montana.
I used to live in Missoula.
And then Coog from Texas, Romero from Louisiana, McGee from Mississippi, Frank from Vermont, and Anders from Wyoming. And
that was it.
And then and it was really fortuitous, miraculous that other sheriffs joined, because Prince and I got consolidated because we're both in the same circuit, San Francisco, 9th Circuit. And so we got overturned.
Oh, of course.
We won. We won at the district court, both of us. Everybody else won at the district court except Coog in Texas. How do you lose a states' rights case in Texas? I don't know. Anyway, so then,
Bad judge.
yeah, the one that moved in from Chicago. You know, so anyway, Coog and Romero won at the 5th Circuit in New Orleans. Won, big time. And in fact, they shook their finger at the 9th Circuit and in their decision. And so now my attorneys told me that that guaranteed us a trip to the Supreme Court, sure enough.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because you have 2 conflicting rulings from the same case from 2 different courts.
2 different districts.
Yeah, 2 circuits.
Or circuits.
Yeah.
So here you are, all these years now retired from teaching.
Busier than I've ever
busier
been.
than you've ever been. And now you're here in Minnesota, and you're watching the lay of the land, so to speak. And you spoke last night at Haven's Garden at Larvita's venue, and you're here today at this venue where we're at right now. And I'm not to say too much, but you're in this venue speaking today, and to the people of Minnesota, to the business owners, and to other constitutionalists in the state of Minnesota. Now I'll ask another question after you answer this one. What encouragement, what advice, what admonishment would you give to people of Minnesota going through what we're going through right now? Because none of this is constitutional.
No, none of it.
What would you, admonishment, encouragement, any of that, what would you give to the people of Minnesota who maybe know something's not quite right, but they don't know how to approach it? What would you say?
Well, first of all, you have to know and understand your rights. If you don't know your rights, you don't have them. You're leaving it up to somebody else to decide what they are. So I would suggest to everybody, read the Bill of Rights and be close to memorizing it. For instance, what rights are guaranteed in the First Amendment? You should know all 5. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to peaceably assemble, and the right to petition government for redress of grievances. In other words, complain to government and that they're supposed to actually do something about it. Second one's real easy, right to bear arms. Third is real easy. Quartering troops in your homes. That was a big thing during the Revolutionary War, and that's why the Founding Fathers said you can't do that anymore. We're not going to do that. Fourth, well, there's probable cause, there's not due process, that's 5. Probable cause, and you have to have warrants, and probable cause is big. I mean, that's huge for cops. You have to have a legitimate reason to stop somebody. So that's basically,
or enter their home.
That's basically it. Yeah, if you're going to go into people's homes. So, and that is still decided a lot by courts, and rightfully so. But then you go to the 5th, and now you're talking the right to remain silent, no double jeopardy, and that there must be, oh gosh, due process of law. Okay, due process of law. Due process is important. The 5th Amendment guarantees due process, and then the 6th spells it out. You have the right to a jury trial, an impartial, yeah. But see, first you have a right to a trial at all. Some places you don't get a trial. So then you get a speedy and public trial, and you get an impartial jury by your peers, not government, but your neighbors are the one to decide this. And then you get the right to have an attorney, and you get a right to face your accusers. And That's all due process. And then seventh, of course, is you get a trial, a jury trial on civil matters as well, if the value is over $20. And then Eighth Amendment, that's where it applies to cops. The Eighth Amendment really hit me. No excessive fines or bail. That's talking about traffic tickets. You think that traffic tickets are maybe just a little bit excessive in America? You know, running a stop sign in California is now like $700, and in Arizona it's $250 to $300, and that's a lot of money for a lot of people.
And not to mention the bail. I mean,
And you know
I might know people who know people.
Well, yeah.
and who see first-time offenders on like a 5th-degree controlled substance charge coming in and getting slapped with a $250,000 bond,
exactly.
or even
Ridiculous.
a $50,000 or a $25,000 bond.
So the Eighth Amendment also says one other thing: no cruel and unusual punishment. And then the ninth is rights that aren't detailed in the Constitution doesn't mean you don't have them. Like your right
They're
to be a
reserved
parent.
to the people.
Well, that's 9. That's 10. All rights, all powers not delegated to the United States government are reserved to the people or to the states, which shows the power of the people. And so yeah, exactly. And the 10th is also a check and balance. The state should be that check and balance on federal authority. So my suggestion to people is know your rights, but also know what your sheriff's powers are, and have a relationship with your sheriff so that he can defend you from ridiculous mask mandates that aren't even laws. They're not laws. The governor cannot make law. He's not a legislator. And so the next one is shutting down your business. Does anybody in government have the authority to shut down your business in order to protect you because it's for your own good? We're shutting you down. No. If government can do that, then they can do anything, anytime they want.
So you open up, because that's exactly where I was going to go. But this might actually be maybe just this is going to be very pointed, and I'm having a funny feeling that you're probably not going to have a problem with that.
I'm not.
So, Sheriff Mack, I want you to not literally, but I don't know, maybe literally, look at every sheriff in the United States right now, but in particular here in Minnesota, because there's a case out of Freeborn County right now where the sheriff is not backing up the business owner in this particular case, saying won't back her up, won't support her. There are sheriffs in other counties that are silent. Well, we're not going to be the mass police, we're not going to be the social gathering police, we're not going to be the social distancing police, but we're not going to speak out either and speak out against these things. As a constitutionalist, first and foremost, as a patriot, first and foremost, and then now also as a retired law enforcement official who fought the fight that you fought and won, what admonition would you give to those sheriffs out there right now that are refusing, not just to, maybe the ones who are pretending that they're doing something by not doing anything? I don't think that's good enough.
No, it's not.
How would you admonish them right now in the face of these unconstitutional edicts and dictums that are coming down from wannabe tyrants and despots?
Well, first, I would tell every sheriff, it's a simple process. It's a simple solution. Did you take an oath of office before you could take your job? What did you promise the people that you would do? You promised to uphold and defend, protect and preserve the United States Constitution. I would ask every sheriff in this country and every deputy and every patrol officer, every chief of police, every peace officer, how is it that you keep your oath of office? Can you abdicate the responsibility to fulfill that oath to anyone else? I'll only do it if the Supreme Court says I can. I'll only do it if the governor says I can. I'll only do it if my sheriff or my sergeant says I can keep my oath. Can you ever take the stand and swear an oath to tell the truth and then lie if your sergeant tells you to? Not tell the truth if your supervisor tells you not to? No, it is only up to you. And the fulfillment of that oath is only up to you. And the reason that all three branches all members of the legislative branch, judicial branch, and executive branch all have to swear the same oath. Why did the Founding Fathers require that in Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution? Because they wanted to perpetuate and guarantee liberty for the people of this country. Now we have sheriffs that actually say, and one, probably the one you mentioned, that they have a moral responsibility to enforce all laws, which no cop has ever done. We've never enforced all laws. It's called police discretion. If somebody runs a stop sign in front of me, do I have to write them a ticket? No, and most of the time we don't. Sometimes we just honk at them, or the officer will turn on his red and blues and let him know I see you. And sometimes you stop them and give them a verbal warning. Sometimes you stop them and give them a written warning. Sometimes you write them a ticket. Well, that's up to the officer. His methodology and the enforcement of that is up to him. There's no rule making that says you have to enforce all laws. And anybody that says they enforce all laws is either lying or doesn't know what he's talking about. Because we don't.
Or
we
never
have.
take any time off.
Yeah, yeah. So for anybody to say that they have a moral responsibility to enforce these executive orders that, like I said, aren't laws, for a governor cannot set aside liberty. A governor cannot set aside the Constitution. A governor cannot destroy your business, your right to your pursuit of happiness, your right to be a business owner and a landowner. He can't. And just like Thomas Jefferson said, we can reason with the people, we can persuade the people, we can teach the people, but we cannot force the people. And just like they couldn't force me to work for the federal government, you cannot force citizens to wear something on their face, all in the name of taking care of them. This is all for your own good. We're destroying the Constitution, we're destroying liberty, and I'll go along with that, and I will enforce whatever the governor tells me to. Do you know why Hitler was successful? Because he had an army to enforce all his ridiculous, genocidal, maniacal policies. And right now, where do we even learn that? I have sheriffs and deputies in this country and other officers who say, I'm just following orders. That's right out of the Nuremberg trial, where the officers who were being tried for crimes against humanity and for the murders that happened against Jews in World War II, they were found not guilty, and they were found guilty, and because of their just following order thing, their excuse was, we're just following orders, you can't charge us with murder. And the court says, that doesn't cut it. You should know better. And that's what I would tell every sheriff in this country. You should know better. The Constitution and freedom come first. Where did we put liberty in America if we can force everybody to wear a mask? And if they say now, they said a mask protects you from getting the disease and it protects other people, then why do I need to wear it? If you're not going to get, if your mask will keep you from getting my germs and keep you safe and happy and healthy, then why do I have to be forced and go to jail to wear it? Why are we shutting down businesses? And the sheriffs in this country, there's hundreds and hundreds of sheriffs that are defending people's rights to keep their businesses open and keep them from being arrested or harassed or harangued by government. I got one historical significant happening to ask every sheriff in this country. If you were called back in time to December 1st, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama, when Rosa Parks refused to give her seat to a white man, she was arrested by 2 peace officers for not giving her seat to a white man. Sheriff, if you could go back in time and you were on that same bus and you were answering that call now, knowing what we know about our principles of equality and that all men are created equal, would you have arrested Rosa Parks? Then why would you arrest Rosa Parks today for keeping her business open or for refusing to wear a mask? There is no difference between Larvita keeping her restaurant open, Lisa keeping her business open, and what Rosa Parks did. She stood against stupid laws. And we should have taken a good constitutional sheriff keeping his oath would have escorted her home safely. And that's exactly what we should be doing today. Standing by and letting the health department and letting the state know that the rights of these people in my county will not be violated, only over my dead body. And we stand for liberty, and we understand the principles that our country was founded upon. And once you give your word that you're going to uphold and defend the Constitution in your jurisdiction and in your county, the argument is over. You must tell your governor you're not going along, and you're not going to allow his henchmen to come in and do it either.
I have nothing else to add to that. So for those
You
of
can
you,
tell. You can tell I feel a little bit passionate about this.
so for those of you who, the tens and tens of you who tune into the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment channel, Sheriff Mack said it all. I've been saying this for the last, I don't know how many months, for years. Sheriffs in Minnesota, Freeborn County, Fillmore County, Houston County, Dodge, Dakota, Homestead, all of them. You have an obligation to not just not enforce, you have an obligation to protect the citizens that elected you. And not from a virus, but from unconstitutional government tyranny and overreach. That, you don't have to like what I said, but you do have to follow that oath.
Let me add one thing to that. My Supreme Court case was all about overreach.
Overreach.
And Scalia wrote in that, he said, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions, but only if we have people locally who enforce it. Otherwise, it's just a meaningless piece of paper. But if we stand and do what's right and take a principled stand for liberty, we take back America, county by county, one sheriff at a time, working for and with his citizens.
That's right. Sheriff Mack, I appreciate you coming out here and talking
Thank
to
you, my
me
friend.
today, and
Thank you.
I appreciate the fact that you've flown to the frozen north. So I don't know if you'll survive to walk out to the vehicle when you leave, but thank you for your time and thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.